This is a fan-generated show. If you'd like to support us, please go to jamieglazov.com. Also, don't forget to subscribe to our new Rumble channel. All your support is greatly appreciated.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I'm thrilled to announce the release of my new book, Obama's True Legacy: How He Transformed America. There's a reason why Mike Huckabee calls it a ferocious and chilling read. Order it now at Amazon.com or at FrontPageMag.com.
Good evening, and welcome back to another episode of the Glazov Gang. I'm Annie Cyrus, sitting in for Dr. Jamie Glazov. I promise you he'll be back soon, but I appreciate you hanging in there for the last couple of weeks as I had the honor to sit in for Dr. Jamie Glazov. We are going to be joined by extremely special guest. I actually very recently informed him that it has been a couple of months for me to just build the courage to do this interview, so I'm extremely honored. But before we go to him, I do actually want to also ask you all, our lovely audience, to bear with me through this interview. As most of you know my background, former child bride from Islamic Republic of Iran. So the topic we're going to touch on tonight, it's a little touchy for me. So I will do my best to ask the best questions that could possibly be your question. But if I fail you, just forgive me and feel free to submit your questions via email or comments. And because I know for a fact you're going to definitely ask our special guest to come back, but we'll ask them the second round. With that being said, it is my absolute honor and privilege to introduce our guest this evening, Aaron Stevenson. He's a father, a fellow Christian, patriot, freedom fighter, and he mentioned on his own social media that he's a fired DHS whistleblower, fighting not just for simple freedoms, but for safety and future of our children. Aaron, what an honor to have you with us this evening.
Thank you very much.
Absolutely. I know you are known to many of us, but this is your first time joining us here on the Glazov Gang. So do you mind taking a few minutes and give a little bit of, let's say, bio background, but is everything you think our audience should know about Aaron?
So I graduated high school June 2001. I went to boot camp in the Marine Corps in July 2001, where I did 2 enlistments as a Marine. And I went to Iraq 3 times in this time frame. And I was at the point in that career where it's like, do I stick with this? Do I stay in? I got 2 kids, I'm married, or do I, make my way out of there? I stopped believing in the war, kind of saw enough of it. I made my opinion about it. And I decided I'm going to stick with intelligence. I still want to do like a service to the nation. So I'm now gearing my sights towards working for a DHS. And that takes a long time. I didn't have a resume enough to become like hired as a federal employee. So I contracted for about 2.5 years, still in the intel world, still the DoD world, where I worked for the National Ground Intelligence Center and the Defense Intelligence Agency. So from 2010, 11, and 12, I deployed to Afghanistan and supported, again, combat operations, Afghan stuff. Then in 2012, I was hired into DHS, and I was working at the National Targeting Center for CBP, Customs and Border Protection. I was there for about 18 months. And within the first 2 months of being there, you can already see the writing on the wall. There are some major problems when it comes to our ability not necessarily to vet. We knew people that were coming in. We just didn't have any jurisdiction or any tools to prevent bad people from coming in. So I was like, oh, okay, well, maybe I should go then to, who's in charge of that process? And that was USCIS, so United States Citizenship and Immigration Services. And I applied there. I got a job, and I started there in 2014. And it took me about, maybe 5 months before I realized, oh, it's actually pretty broken here too. There's a problem with our system. And then basically I was just a Fed. I was a Fed for up until 2023 when I got fired. And I got fired because I blew the whistle on 3 different things. And that first one was in 2021. And this was about the watch-listed gang members, known cartel members that are getting a hold of the kids coming across the border by themselves. They're called unaccompanied kids. And yeah, that was enough for me to, I pushed back on it at work. I tried making noise about it at work. I tried, spreading this throughout the government. No one was catching on to it. So last choice was to go to the media, which I did. And then in October of that year, there was some more corruption going on in my agency with asylum. So I blew the whistle on that publicly. I went forward, gave my face and name. That started the investigation. And then while under investigation, I started learning how we brought in a lot of terrorists during the fall of Kabul. And so that information got pushed out in 2022. And then work was like, yeah, you're getting fired, dude. Like this, go home. We will tell you when you're done. And they told me I was done February 10th, 2023. And here I am.
Wow. So much to unpack here, but let me start with saying thank you so much for your service to this country from day one to today, because you're still helping this country. Let's just start with the first problem. The first, not problem, the first thing I heard that caught my attention. There is a problem in our system. The whole system has a problem. This problem, is it as deep as we hear the swamp and the deepness? Or is it just on the higher level? Is it on the lower level? Where is this problem? Is it a spread like a pandemic across the entire system from local to state to federal, all of it? Where is this problem?
Okay, so just the federal part. Obviously, yes. So just to answer your question, by the way, up front, yes, this problem exists throughout the entire system. So let's break down the system. When it comes to the federal apparatus, yeah, this is not just like a political appointee problem. This is not just your SCS, your senior executive service problem. This goes down to the root level of federal employees. There is a lot of activism. There's a lot of aggression when it comes from, just going to use a broad brush really quick and just say the left. You can use that word however you want to, but you know what it means. It's people that really believe in a globalist government. They've obviously moved on from the American Republic idea, and they believe in, for example, open borders. They believe in a lot of things that a lot of Americans don't. And it's rampant. It's throughout the government. So yeah, you're getting this at the lowest level of just like federal employees, but you're also getting it all the way up the ladder as well, because as a Fed, there is a career ladder that you can climb, and people want to climb that ladder. So to climb that ladder, you're going to do what the system wants you to do. So even if they don't believe in it and they're true believers, they will still do what needs to get done to climb that ladder. So yeah, when it comes to the problem, it's not just policy, it's absolutely personnel. However, as Americans are now kind of starting to realize over the past 18 months or so, there's this nasty little acronym called NGO, which stands for non-governmental organizations. And these are literally just the government. I know it's an NGO, but when they receive government money to do the government's work and the government benefits, that's part of the government. And these things are, again, rock to the core. It's basically government by proxy. And you've got this great barrier in between the two, in which makes it more difficult to FOIA, more difficult to get accountability. There's a lot less oversight of these things. And then there's still your contract world, which is rife with fraud as well. And you have all these entities that are kind of, I would say, operating in sync, basically, but they support each other to sustain the system. So long answer was that. Short answer recapped. Yes, there are problems throughout this system, which includes different entities as well.
Thanks for that explanation. Now, let me ask one question that, like, just to really, really make sure I ask the question. How much, and by the way, just a side note, what you call the left, I normally just say the anti-Americans. That's like any American value, they're against it. So that's how I translate the word left. Now, on that note, how much of this problem, issue, cracks, anything you want to call it, I call it disaster and crisis. How much of this disastrous crisis we're facing as a nation has been possibly resolvable in hands of administrations such as, let's say, Hussein Obama or Joe Biden? How much of this could have been stopped from furthering or even starting to happen?
It's a really good question. So taking that, my perspective would be, it's, I don't think Obama's or Biden or most presidents, they're there to be, like they are a president, but they're not the president. Like they're spokesmen. They are there to be the representation. They're the window dressing in a store. The problem I think lies in, obviously, it's kind of more of the deeper, but basically the real levers that actually operate this machine, it comes from the administrative state. It comes from banking. It comes from, very powerful organizations, obviously. So I don't think this is a simple thing of like, oh, go back in time and, maybe if we just had a different policy in 1965 or 1948 or something like that. It's like, no, it's I think a little bit deeper than that. And, the administrative state, for example, that thing got propped up in the 1930s when FDR, expanded the government, but also like really transformed its role. And it became and that was his way out of the depression, so it's like, we have to accept these things, or it's not just going back in time. If you want a system, you have to build for it. You have to build the thing that you want. So the system that we live in right now, we can't just hit reset 1980. It's like, no, you have to figure out how to change course. And I don't believe necessarily it's always in like steering an ocean liner. It's like some things you can do pretty quickly. It's just that not everyone's going to be on that ocean liner when you're done, and you have to be okay with that. But if you've been part of the process, which is committed fraud, lied to Americans, stepped way beyond the authority in which your executive office functions, you deserve what's coming, I think.
Okay. Good answer. I like your answer. And the reason I bring this up for our audience, I feel like we're wasting time, energy, and air by just constantly going back to, well, if Trump didn't do that, or if Obama did do that. Now, I'm not putting him on the same scale. That's not what I'm saying. I just feel like people of America need to come to realize there's way more than President of the United States of America when it comes to what we face every day. So thank you for kind of sort of confirming what I was thinking. Now, moving on to another thing you said while introducing yourself. The first case that you tried to make noise about or get people's attention or systems attention was the cartel members smuggling kids into the country. Okay, tell me more about that. How? Two, why?
Yes. Okay. So there's this program that HHS operates. So the Department of Health and Human Services, and it's called the Unaccompanied Child Program, or we'll be saying, the UC program quite a bit, or UCs, Unaccompanied Children. So unaccompanied child is a person who's not an American and they don't have any immigration status or like travel papers to enter the country. And they're also under the age of 18. So they show up to the border by themselves, no parent, and they're supposed to not have a parent or any family inside the country. So they literally are kids at the border with nowhere to go. So what happens is DHS takes custody of them for like 3 days, literally 72 hours, and then DHS transfers them to HHS. HHS has this office called the Office of Refugee Resettlement, ORR, and where they find sponsors for these kids. Okay, a sponsor can be a number of different things, which we'll get to that part later if it comes up. It's not that important, but the trafficking part obviously is. So the word trafficking has a very legal definition. The word trafficking is the use of fraud, force, or coercion. So you're using shady means to get a kid. Like you're obviously lying. This is not genuine. So fraud, force, or coercion to get a kid, and they're moved for one of three purposes. One, they're going to be labor trafficked, so they become slaves of a corporation or a factory or a farm, whatever. Two is they could be sex slaves, sold into forced prostitution. Or three, exploitation. Now, the first two are exploitation, obviously, but the third one is it's more than just like physical harm, physical works. A lot of systems that states run, for example, in like foster care or in the CPS world, these kids carry a price tag on them. So if you foster a child, you receive funding to foster that kid. Now, if that kid is like, really messed up, you get more money. So there's now a financial incentive to make sure that kid's more messed up. So they'll put these kids on psychotropic medications. They'll put them on appetite suppressants. They'll put them on mood controllers. They also have states now that are offering funding for example, transitioning a child. So now there's a financial incentive to make sure a kid will transition as well. So they're not selling them into sex. They're not forcing them on a farm. However, they're exploiting the child. So that's what child trafficking is. Shady means to get a kid, and then you're going to use that kid for something bad. So this is where it's important, understanding those little definitions. There's this program that the U.S. government has called the Transnational Organized Crime Watch List, or the TOC watch list, TOC. And this watch list looks for international gangsters or cartels, okay? It started in like 2016, and I was on the working group when this thing first started. I was there representing my part of USCIS, and this thing existed as a whole of government approach. So the U.S. government's going to solve transnational organized crime, and so the DOJ is there, DHS, State Department, Treasury, labor. We're all there for like, hey, we have this thing. How do we use it for ourselves now? And they would put obviously gangsters on the watch list. So for the first year or two at USCIS, we don't see anything because the people on this watch list was very small at the time. It was just Eastern European gangsters. They don't come here for immigration benefits. So we at USCIS, we never see them. In walks Donald Trump, 2017. And his DOJ adds on 18th Street Gang, MS-13, Países Cartel, I think all these, South American, Central American cartels and, international gangs. And we start seeing them at USCIS quite a bit because these gangs are using the immigration system to stay in the country. And they're doing it through loopholes. They're doing it through fraudulent asylum claims. This is how the whole thing works. So every day at work, whenever one of these aliens on the watch list, if they do something, we'll see it. So if they get arrested, we see it. If they are on a flight into the country, we see it. If they're being deported out of the country, we see it, right? So that goes on for about 5 years. 2016. Now we're in 2021 February. So Joe Biden is now president, his first full month in office, and this notice comes across my email that says this watch-listed gang member has applied to sponsor an unaccompanied alien child. But it comes across as a code. So it just says what's the reason for this encounter, and it says 6 USC 279 UAC sponsor. And I was like, whatever that is, I don't know. Never saw it before. I don't care. Whatever. But it didn't say USCIS, whatever. I see another one a month later. And it's like, I think I saw that code before. I'm like, let me check this thing out real quick. So I had every single encounter from when this program first started, right? So I searched it in my inbox, in my little folder for all of them. It doesn't come up once. That code only matches for the one from February, the one from March. Nothing in the 5 years prior to that. It's like, okay, well, what the hell does this code mean? So I Googled it, okay, what's 6 USC 279, whatever. I can tell it's a US law, but I don't know what the hell it is. And so you can look it up yourself right now. 6 USC 279 UAC sponsor. It's the program for these kids. It talks about what they are and how it works, and yada, yada. And this is where I was like, okay, so why would a MS-13 member try to get a kid? When you say it out loud to yourself, you're like, wait a minute, why would an MS-13 member try to get a kid? It's like, so I started looking into these two records, and the first one was a dude, the second one was a chick. But you can go through their rap sheet and their alien history, their immigration history, and it's like, okay, these two are illegals. They came in illegally. They've actually been ordered to be removed previously. Why are they coming here illegally and then doing it again and now trying to get a child? That made no sense at all. And then in April, another one comes across my desk, and now it's another gang member. So I look at that dude, and it's like, okay, same thing. He's got a legal presence. He's been here illegally before, and he's using the asylum process to stay in the country. Why is he trying to get a kid? Like, this makes no sense at all. And then you start seeing patterns over time. Now, the thing that wasn't a pattern, though, is where these aliens came from, okay? So of the total of 12 that I caught before I got removed from this program, they came from 4 different countries. And those countries were El Salvador, Guatemala, and Honduras. Then also this guy from Romania. And all these 12 people belonged to 3 different gangs. So that was some Balkan gang, I forget the name of them, but then MS-13 and 18th Street Gang. And it's like, okay, so you're telling me that there's this program to where gangsters can get kids, and it's not like one click getting it from one part of the city of El Salvador. It's like, no. This is like multiple gangs are doing this. Like, how the hell do they know how to do this thing? This something just smells, right? And I started reaching out. First, I asked my work at USCIS. I'm like, hey, does anybody deal with UACs and UCs? I don't know. I don't do it with my job, but does anybody here do anything with that? And we didn't at all. Okay. And so I asked around to the rest of DHS. I called CBP. I called ICE. I called Intelligence Analysis, or INA. Nothing at all. No one. I checked other parts of this talk working group. So I checked DOJ, FBI. I was looking at ERO, Treasury, anybody that would have, any kind of just information on this. And I'm telling them there are watch listed gang members on the talk watch list sponsoring children. do you guys deal with either of those two populations? No. And it was like, okay, like I'm done then. And now one important thing. So I sit down with Project Veritas to do the interview with James O'Keefe in July of 2021. So when I sat down with them, there was a total of 8 different aliens on this watch list trying to get kids. Okay. So now it's also a matter of like looking at the actual problem, because it sounds like, well, there's 8 dudes, whatever, not a big deal, right? This watch list is capped at 40,000 people. Now it's artificially capped. It's not like it's a physical barrier. The US government determined we're going to limit this watch list to 40,000 people. So if I'm seeing 8 of these people on a very small watch list, one every 3 to 4 weeks, and they're coming from different parts of the world, from different gangs, it's like, okay, guys, this is a bit more expansive than we realize. We're not capturing the full data set here. Like, this is a bigger problem than we understand right now. And that was enough for me. So I sat down with them, do the interview. They release it in August 2021. In that time frame, another one came on the watch list. So they actually had to do an edit where it said like, hey, by the way, there's actually 9 of these people on the watch list. And yeah, it was a matter of just like making sure that that came out, because we had confirmation that we know what's going on in this program. And it's also important to realize too, by the way, I'm not the first whistleblower about child trafficking in this program. There was a Senate report in 2014. Now, this is all me knowing about these things afterwards, but there was a Senate report in 2014 which discussed specifically child trafficking via the UC program. In 2015, Jason Piccolo, he used to be, I think he was an ICE employee, but he was a Fed whistleblower. There's child trafficking in this program. In 2016, there was a bipartisan Senate panel. That was January 28th, and they talked about child trafficking in the UC program. And you see a history of like, we know about this, yet we're doing nothing about it at all. And so now when you see, you know, watch listed gang members, so we have their face, we got their iris, we got their name, their date of birth, we have their fingerprints. We know everything about them, but we're not doing anything about it as they get these kids.
Well, I don't know where to begin. One thing I can say is so when I escaped Iran and went to Turkey and went to UN back in the time when UN actually was a United Nation doing its job, I ended up getting my asylum approval on an I-95 visa, which used to be a visa you would get when you proved who you are, where you come from, what your problem is, and your life is endangered, genuinely all that stuff. But I remember I was under age of 18, and I was told, because I don't have parents with me and I don't have a guardian in the United States of America, I have to wait until day after my 18th birthday, and then my flight to the United States of America will be issued. And when I asked back then, what if somebody sponsors me? And they're like, there is no such a thing of sponsoring you. They can sponsor you, but you need a guardian because you're underage, and the United States of America does not allow underage kids to just come in. I cannot believe this is the same United States of America I came 21 years ago. This wasn't 60, 70, 80 years ago. This was literally 21 years ago when I came to US. And now I'm hearing from you that it doesn't matter if you're underage and no guardian, and some cartel member from anywhere can just snatch you. I don't really know where to start, but I want to ask you this, Aaron. So, and of course, we remove you from the formula, right? We don't try to fix the formula. We remove the person who cut the issues and is doing something about it, speaking out about it. We remove him so he cannot later tell people 8 turned to 9 to 90 to 200 to 4,000. But these kids are not American born or American citizens, correct? These are all non-American.
Yeah, all of them. And by the way, and that's the important part too, because you've seen the demographics when it comes to these people crossing the border. First maybe half year or so, basically Central Americans, Mexicans is all it was. And now you see they're coming from Africa, Central Asia, all over the world, right? The population of these kids has stayed the same. These are primarily Guatemalans, and then El Salvadorans, and then Hondurans, and that. So this is not family unification, because if this was family unification, you would see Africans trying to get with their African parents and South Americans trying to get with South American parents. It's not. These kids are coming from Central America.
Okay, and that's the thing. I just want to add this. I always say one of the sentences. I think the second favorite sentence of the movie Sound of Freedom is when Jim Caviezel says, in his character says, God's children aren't for sale. It doesn't matter. I'm not asking because it matters if they're American versus Iranian versus Mexican. It's the reason I'm asking is I want the left who are at the border for a photo op in full white crying. Why am I even beating around the bush? AOC, so worried about these children being separated from their families. I want to know where is she at when it comes to these kids being handed over on their sponsorship to these criminals, ruthless criminals. I think she ran out of tears for that photo op. But putting my sarcasm aside, how much of this information, Aaron, has been heard by our Congress, and how much or how many of them have even blinked, flinched, or tried to do anything about it, to best of your knowledge?
Okay, so first and foremost, they know they are aware of the problem. They're aware of the data. They know, but now I'll also say this well too. They're not like this. They're not a clairvoyant body that knows all things, and they look at the world through their lens. So these are legislative people looking at the executive. They don't understand the executive. They understand legislative. So I'll give them that part where it's like, all right, you guys don't understand how power works. You could just defund the thing and show you what power is, but they keep funding this program. I'm not going to go down that road too much. However, no, they know. And I will further that by saying there was that rule change that when they tried pushing through back in October to December of 2023, where HHS tried to solidify their own laws, their own policies and memos that they created into law. And those policies, those memos, those were the conditions that led to the entire environment of all this trafficking. If those things get fixed, I would say it's a lot harder. I can get in that further, but they tried to solidify their own laws, their own policies into law. I'm sorry. And we pushed back on that. And we were like, no, you are not doing that actually. And so we get as many people as we could, and we get all these comments on this website to like slow it down, stop it, blah, blah, blah. The GOP Senate, so this is actually only, I think, 37 or 38 senators, but led by Chuck Grassley, they responded to that rule change with a letter, and they were like, no. Like, there's a problem with this program. We already acknowledge that. And you can't do this rule change. And if you try to push it through, we're going to get involved and do an oversight on this thing. Cool. Well done. Kudos. It's like, all right, there you go, guys. Democrats responded as well to that letter. And I think it was Dick Durbin that led this one. And they gave kudos. They're like, hey, guys, good job. Keep up the good work. So, again, they're aware. It's this. They can't claim ignorance. This is a beyond. They don't care. There's something to this thing where it's like, I don't know how to say it because, these are kids. It's like, what the hell's your problem? Like, this is very, very simple to solve, and yet they're not doing it. So I can't answer that question entirely because, again, they know, and there's no way they care. So I don't know what to make of it anymore.
Yeah, I agree. They're kids, and I have always, different tones and different times and different formats and methods, I've always said I don't care who you are. Basic 101 chart of being a human is children are off limits. Let them be kids. Let them be kids. Let them keep their innocence in childhood. And I mean, as it is, life is tough from day one, but I agree, children are off limit. And again, I repeat, when I came to America for a long time, I struggled with how in America kids were cherished, and fathers would die for their kids, protecting them, and mothers would sacrifice all for their kids to protect them. And it's like, as you said, what happened? What happened? Any kid. Now, we will definitely get into our own kids, American kids too, but what is wrong with you people? I don't care how much money you're going to lose. I don't care how much sponsorship, how much vote. I don't care. Be human. Protect these kids. Well, they know, and they're not doing anything about it. And I have promised myself to not go on long rants of banshee format. So, Aaron, if you don't mind, we're gonna take a quick commercial break from our sponsors, and I can also calm down. And when we come back, we're gonna dig into the rest of the issues. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Looks like you've been sleeping well,
Megan, he's back. The My Pillow guy.
and you're looking good.
Still feeling good.
Well, just when you thought it couldn't get any better, we've got the best pillow ever, My Pillow 2.0.
Wow, it's so soft and smooth.
It's cool to the touch. How did you do that?
Well, we took My Pillow's patented fill and combined it with this new technology that we didn't have back then when I invented My Pillow to bring you the best pillow in history, My Pillow 2.0. Just like all of you, I never imagined that My Pillow could get any better. That's why I haven't changed it in nearly 20 years. Then I heard about a revolutionary new technology, and I knew I had to bring it to you all. My Pillow 2.0 is truly the next generation of My Pillow.
The My Pillow 2.0 is cooler and softer than the last My Pillow. It is so comfortable to sleep on at night. I look forward to going to bed, and I wake up well rested in the morning.
Sleep is all about temperature and height. My Pillow 2.0's patented adjustable fill is going to give you the exact individual support you need from your head to your bed. And now here's where it gets even better. We've all experienced those temperature-related sleep interruptions where you get too hot, you toss and turn, you flip your pillow over to the cool side. Well, all that's gone with my brand new My Pillow 2.0 cooling fabric that's made with temperature-regulating thread.
The best sleep just got even better. Whether you have a My Pillow or not, you need to get the brand new My Pillow 2.0. Call or go to mypillow.com now. Use your promo code, and for a limited time when you buy one, you'll get a second one absolutely free.
You're sleeping even better.
And cooler, too.
And you're looking good.
Feeling good.
I knew you would.
Visit mypillow.com.
Yes, welcome back to Glazov Gang. Make sure to go to mystore.com or mypillow.com and use the promo code GG, that is Glazov Gang, GG21. You get discounts, we get credit, and while doing so, we and you get to support Mike Lindell's efforts as he fights for our freedoms in front lines. Also, if you're interested in picking up some handmade, one-of-a-kind resin art made by yours truly, you can head over to lutfstudio.com. That is lutfstudio.com. Use the promo code Glazov, and you will be supporting me. You receive discount, and a portion of your purchase will be coming to the Glazov Gang, which is a 100% fan-generated show. If you don't want to do neither of those, because you don't need to buy anything, you can just go to jamieglazov.com and make a direct donation. They're on the website. Okay. As much as I would like to promote more stuff, but the topic today, too serious for me to take more of our guest's precious time to promote his stuff. So, Aaron, before we went to our commercial break, we concluded, well, they know, they don't care, they don't want to do anything about it. But let me ask you this, because I've heard, I have seen your other interviews or your team, including Tara Rodis's interviews, where you guys actually have something unique. You're telling us about the problem, but then you also offer a lot of call to actions, steps to take, things that we all can do on a daily basis to help. So right now, where do I go? What do I do? How can I help your efforts to change the minds or help these people? What do I do? Where do I go?
Okay. So specifically you, because you've got a microphone in front of your face. It's obviously getting people aware of these things. And now I'm not one of those guys that believes in exposure is the cure. I'm not that guy, especially with this one, because child trafficking is a major problem, right? And the way I explain it is I try to look at it economically, because at the end of the day, you know, when you buy and sell something, you can see economic patterns, right? And it's horrible to make kids something, but that's what people are treating them as. So there's this child trafficking economy, right? This entire like umbrella of just all this activity. Well, the supply are children. So there's an original source for these kids. We're talking about a sliver of this, which is HHS, and these kids coming through this HHS lane of, you know, whatever, right? There's also foster kids in the CPS world. That's way bigger. It's also way more complex. So if you're smart when it comes to state law, counties, sheriffs, state attorneys, and that kind of stuff, if you're smart, get involved locally and figure that out. Tara is a part of this group called America's Future. They're active in this thing very, very well. And there's figure out where you live, figure out your population data set and the rules you're living with, and get involved that way. When it comes to HHS, so this is a single entity. It's very organized. It's very central, which means you can basically reverse the flow of it a lot quicker. So my take right now is obviously the Senate is responding to the rule change, and they're going to try to introduce what's called a CFR or a CRA, a Congressional Review Act. This is where Congress initiates oversight over a rule change, and they say like, hey, like this is not okay. Like you've got problems, therefore we're going to require oversight now. Now the cool thing is this is actually happening parallel to what's called the Chevron case in the Supreme Court. The Chevron case, like the gasoline company, they're going to possibly look at overturning, giving all these executive agencies so much autonomy. And that's going to severely hamper what HHS is doing. So that's cool and great, good and all. But then it's like, that's like all intermediate stuff. So long-term game, as far as actually solving this problem, when it comes to HHS specifically, this thing's only solved through strong executive leadership. That is the nature of the American federal government, is a strong executive. A 2025 President Trump, his administration could not only stop this at the stroke of a pen, but also these kids can be found. They can be accounted for. Again, there's a single entity operating this whole entire system for these kids at the border. It's HHS. The information's already there. You just have to understand how programs work, systems of record, and how to do targeting campaigns. You can find these kids, I think, pretty simply. But more importantly, sorry, I should say more importantly, but just as important is you can find the actual traffickers as well in the same system. This, and I've already kind of ran through it with a few people that are trusted colleagues, and this would not take more than a month to organize, and then maybe within 4 to 8 months to actually implement and create actual lasting effect, which is stopping the flow of children immediately, and then rescuing the ones that are currently out there, and obviously bringing to justice the ones that did it to them. It's not going to be that hard. So as far as getting that into effect, again, like I said, that hinges on Trump being in office. So get Trump in office. A good way to do this, I think, is it's the two populations that I think need to hear the message the most are basically women and Spanish speakers. Women, because I think this resonates a little bit more with women. It's a maternal instinct, I think. I think it's just something that women have more than men. They need to understand. It's like, listen, no one's saying that you're at fault for, if you voted for Biden the first time. Okay, things suck. I get it. But it's like, you didn't know what was going to happen. Fine, I agree with that one. You were scared of 2020, whatever. Don't do it again. I would say vote for Trump, but don't vote for him again. You can't do it because this is going to continue. And the second one are Spanish speakers because, again, these kids are coming from Central America. And there's a cultural resonation with these things. There just is. It's hard seeing, like Slavic people die in a war right now. Because I'm, as you can see, Christian and Slavic, right? It's not easy seeing those things. And if we can talk to people and make sure people understand this problem, it's like, stop reinforcing it by putting in a Biden again, because this problem is going to continue again. If that can just stop, again, like these are solvable problems because they're simple. When it comes to the foster world I was talking about and that whole trafficking scheme, it's more decentralized, so a little bit more complex, and that's where people can be more involved locally. Again, counties, states, that realm, people can get involved that way, or get people to either not vote for Biden again or to vote for Trump. Those are solutions I would say are the most readily available for people.
I love it. Thank you. I always love it when there's a problem and then there's a possible solution. And it's so good to know there is a, as you said, simple solution to this major problem. And yes, I am very aware this is not just America. It's I guess it's the #1 money-making industry internationally right now, which is disgusting to even say the sentence. But Okay, I would like to make sure we do actually talk about the sponsorship thing that you mentioned at the beginning. You didn't get into details, but can we get into details? So there's a unaccompanied kid, and someone can sponsor them after 72 hours of HHS holding them, if I said that correctly, hopefully. And then somebody can be a sponsor of them and take the kid. So, two questions. One, what are the requirements? What do you go through to become a sponsor? And then what happens when you get the kid?
Okay. So everything I'm about to say, by the way, this is because your unelected federal government, these employees, they created these policies. All right. Congress has not shown an ability to control this thing. So all these things I'm about to describe to you, this came from HHS themselves. Okay. So when it comes to unaccompanied kids, you have to be over the age of 18 to sponsor a child. That's about it. That's really about it. Over 90% of sponsors are illegal aliens. So it's not even like an immigration status thing. And actually, before I really get into the rabbit hole and all the craziness of this program, there's two ways to bring a child in the country. One is an international adoption. The other is this unaccompanied kids program. International adoptions are ruled over by what's called the Hague Convention. And this is an international agreement, between like a ton of countries, like 100 plus whatever. And it's a lot of oversight. And it's not just oversight by American government, it's oversight by American government, foreign agency, and American agency. So if like someone in this process like smells trafficking, they'll, no, we're pulling this case back. And it's important to understand this because the numbers about 10 years ago of unaccompanied kids versus this foreign adoption program, they weren't that far apart. There was 14,000 unaccompanied kids, and there was like 8,500 of these adoptions. Fast forward to 2022. So fast forward, just 10 years to 2022, I think it was, and the number of foreign adopted kids dropped 80%. It was down to 1,785. The number of unaccompanied kids increased 850%, and it was to around 128,000 a year. So it shows you the effect. And that's very important because this Hague Convention control has a lot of oversight, and it's very difficult to do these things because everyone's involved, everyone's checking each other. Now, back to the unaccompanied kids. So the identification process is not genuine, so it cannot be in effect. So when a sponsor wants to prove who they are, so hey, my name is Aaron Stevenson, and I want to sponsor a child, okay? I could give my driver's license, and I could give my social security card or passport, but if I'm an illegal alien, I don't have those things. So I could give you a document from my host nation where I come from. Hey, this is me saying I'm Aaron Stevenson. This is my Mexican library card. This is my Mexican voter state card. This is things that you don't know which looks fake or not. So you can't even give it to the contractor who is the case manager for this child and go like, oh, okay, yeah, we're going to verify this thing in a system. You can't do that. They're looking at it. Myra Moreno, by the way, she actually did that job, and she can tell you detailed information as far as this process and just how much fraud there is. When it comes to the rest of this case management process, well, the child is at a site, right? And the case managers, again, short-term hires that are contractors, they're with all these kids. And so when they're doing this casework, it's not in like a quiet office. It's in like basically a giant warehouse. And this information, all this I'm about to tell you guys, this is Tara Rodas and Debbie White, two other whistleblowers. They can give you detailed information about this process. But in brevity, first off, they don't put the two together. It's not sponsors sitting across from child. So where you can gauge a relationship based on like the child's fear or not of who this person is. This is all done through WhatsApp. And it's not even a FaceTime phone call. So two problems there. One, you never actually see any interaction with child to sponsor. Secondly is WhatsApp by itself, by the way. The US government doesn't allow like the intelligence community to download WhatsApp to their phone because it's that insecure. On top of that, if you have a WhatsApp profile or an account, up to 5 different like phones or laptops can be logged into the one account at one time. So 5 different people on 5 different laptops can be using one thing. There's a big problem there because again, there's no chain of custody to information. So if they're saying like, oh, we need to see your state official ID card. Okay, well, someone in Mexico can send that thing in. Oh, we need to see your your approved release that you have in Kansas City where you live. Okay, cool. My guy over there can make a quick one. There's no control. And again, that was by policy of HHS of how they approve all these things. You can get really far into this process, obviously, but the major problem also is time. They try to push these kids through this process in 28 days. Quick pause of that 28 days. Keep that in the back of your head. In these international adoptions, that's going to cost you about 30 grand or up to 30 grand. And that could take you 8 months to almost 2 years. This is a slow, methodical process to make sure the child doesn't get in bad hands. And you also got to be a U.S. citizen to do this international adoption. Year and a half, 28 days. There's a reason why these things get pushed through so quickly. The translators, they're horrible. I wouldn't say they're good. They're not. There's no real quality control there. But on top of that, I feel like I can really get down the rabbit hole. Every step of the process, I'll keep it short. Every step of the process along the way not only has fraud patterns that currently exist, but they've been exposed. There's been whistleblowers that have shown these things, and there's no evidence that HHS has demonstrated which they've shown control over this. Like there are no barriers to this to ensure the safety of a child. Now, the next part of the problem. They agree to give the child to the sponsor. Okay, cool. How does that work? Case manager closes the file and it goes to somewhere else. Kid gets on a flight and they fly the kid to the sponsor. A dude does this job. One guy is named Carlos Arellano, another whistleblower. He did that job. He can tell you in detail what was going on. And in general, they drop off the kid or they hand off the kid at baggage claim in the airport. Again, an uncontrolled environment. The IDs aren't matching the original application anyways. And that system over there, they're saying like, yeah, whatever, no big deal. 30 days later, there can be, not required, there can be a follow-up phone call. So now that folder who went somewhere else, that's a call center. Again, other short-term contractors. They go through their list of the day. They're making phone calls. Hey, do you have, Juan Carlos? He got, you sponsored Juan Carlos a month ago. Do you still have him? If somebody answers the phone, they check that as a yes. So that's it. So that number that we've always heard about, there's 85,000 missing children. That number came because in 2 years, from FY 2021 to FY 2022, through FY 2022, there was 85,000 no phone calls, basically. No one picked up. That's it. So all these other kids that are with these sponsors, someone could have lied. It's not like they checked with it, hey, put him on FaceTime, let's see the kid. These measures aren't happening. So that number is extremely low. That is the lowest number that the government is willing to accept. In reality, I think it's safer to say anywhere between 50 up to 75% of these kids have gotten trafficked. And that's the gist of it.
So that's pretty painful. That is, again, as someone who I love America, and I do, and I have tried my very best to fight for America in any shape or form I am capable and able. But sometimes I feel like, and I'm very aware of separating the government from the people, from the land, from the nation. But I can't help but to think, yes, we have gone through some seriously corrupt administrations and different departments. But then I don't know, how can people, just average Americans, be okay with this? How can one go to bed knowing some poor kid out there is being trafficked one way or another, the 3 ways you explained, and not try to do something about it? Where did we cross that line? And you don't have to answer this if you don't want to. It's just I can't wrap my head around the fact that we are this deep into inhuman act towards children.
So, and this, personal question, personal answer, right? So this isn't me being like, my time at USC. No, this is me thinking about it and going like, well, so I think it's a complexity of things, right? So first off, I think Americans are overworked, and I think Americans just don't have time. I think most people just they are checked out. Now, I'm not going to apply guilt to them or anything like that. it's like, yeah, you should be more, aware of what's going on. But it's like, I also get it. You're a single parent and you're working like 65 hours a week. I get it. That's not really at you then, right? So as far as everything else, I don't know, because we've talked about this quite a bit, right? We've been on media shows. We've been on good people like you, Mr. Glazov. We've been on with people that talk about us, but you'll notice like a lot of mainstream elements don't pick up this conversation. On top of that, actually, sometimes they do, and it's almost like they purposefully misrepresent the issue. New York Times, congratulations. Great work on talking about child labor trafficking of these unaccompanied kids back in, what was it, January of 2023. Excellent work. Good on you. Problem is, you identify the problem as labor trafficking, not child trafficking. Because again, there's more than just labor trafficking with inside of child trafficking. Secondly, that same exact day that New York Times put out an article saying this is happening, that same day they put out a puff piece that propped up Joe Biden saying he's going to start a task force to look into this issue. It's like, cool. So you're already giving the solution to the reader who thinks, wow, that was bad. Okay, it's okay now. And, I don't think the viewers here need to hear this, but just in case you do, mainstream media is not talking about this for a reason. What the reason is, I don't care. But, maybe because it doesn't fit into a 2-minute segment. I don't know. But there's a lot of people that need to hear about this stuff because this is being done on the taxpayer dollar, which is like kind of the big issue as well, is we're all hemmed up in it, me included. I'm not saying that I'm better than you. We're all paying for this thing. Like this is going to hang on us in our judgment. And I just don't know how to, I know how to tell people. I just don't know how to tell people to make it stick. I come across as kind of aggressive and crass sometimes. And it's like, yeah, people need to hear this thing. But again, that's why it's like, I've given up on the idea of converting a lot of the left in this thing because it's like, you know what? You just don't believe me? Fine, no big deal. That's why it's like, we got to talk to moms and we got to talk to Spanish speakers. It will resonate, I believe, with those two audiences because they can associate with it. They can connect with it. The 22-year-old lefty college dude that, I don't care about converting him. You're either with us or you're not. And if you're not, you're my opposition, so whatever. But yeah, moms, Spanish speakers, that's who I care about the most to hear this.
Yeah, I hear you. And as you said, no, it doesn't fit into a 2-minute discussion. And I'm hoping that you be available to come back either with myself or Dr. Jamie Glazov for round 2, 3, 4, 10, 200, as many rounds as it takes to keep on talking about this topic. And but we are coming to an end of today's segment. So I want to make sure our audience know where they can go to follow you, support you, and get your information from your website, your pages, anywhere you like them to go and to spread the message.
Call me an intel guy. I'm not out there very much. I'm on Twitter. Called out DHS is my Twitter handle. So called_out_DHS. I keep it on lock, so I'll have to approve you if you come in or not. And I judge people. I go in their Twitter first, being like, no, I'm not letting this guy in. I'll let her in. But you can also follow the Suspendables. That's a group on Twitter as well, where it's a lot of whistleblowers that kind of came together. We have our own little group. But also follow people like you because, this is content that actually matters, right? But yeah, there's a lot of us though. Tara Rodas, Debbie White, Maya Moreno, Carlos Ariano. Those people are important, and this is a solvable problem. It is a fixable problem, but there is a requirement to do that fix. That requirement is a strong executive leadership. You have one choice in November for that. And I'm not saying this is a binary election. I'm not going to discount the Green Party. The Green Party is not going to solve it though. You can either put in Trump or somebody else. Trump will fix this because again, I can walk you through this process. I'm not going to do it publicly yet because we're not there, but there is very simple mechanisms to identify these kids, identify the traffickers, and to get justice quickly. It's just information. It's like it exists. It's already centralized. You just need talent loyal to the mission to complete it. And a lot of the federal government now, they won't do it. I'll say that personally, maybe a bit biased, maybe not very objective, but yeah, and not all feds are bad, but not all feds are opposed to this thing. So at the end of the day, again, it's like listen, man, you had your chance. We're doing this, and you're not part of it. So if you want to solve it, local and Trump. That's what I say.
Amen. Well, I personally appreciate everything you do with your, I'm going to say, fellow fighters like Tara Rodas and the rest of your team. I'm very grateful that you gave your time to me this evening to go over this. Keep up the good work. And if there is ever anything I can do or any of us here at Glazov Gang, reach out and we'd be more than happy to support you in any shape or form. Thank you so much, Aaron.
Thank you so much. And thank you all.
And to our lovely audience, let me just do a very quick one sentence or two or five wrap up here. Aaron's right. This is what matters. You know why? Because I will remind you again, I was born in 1983. 1983. The Islamic Revolution took place in 1979. I wasn't even born. You know who became the sexless slave? Children are important because they are going to form the next generation. The next generation of human society depends on what we do for them today. If we let them be just because we can't, or we won't, or we're busy, or we're tired, or we're scared, there will be a day when we all have to meet our Creator, our Lord, and answer the question of why did you not protect God's children? On that note, stay safe, stay vigilant, and we'll see you soon. Good night.